Okay, good morning. Hello, everybody. Let me give you a warm welcome to our final conference of EFFECT-SME project funded by Horizon 2020 program of European Union. Today, the whole day will be about impact evaluations of business support programs for startups and SMEs. And that is also why we wanted to give you this little brain exercise. Hope you can join us on menti.com using the code you can see on the screens. Can we show the results of this exercise? Yeah. Whether you're here with us on site or online, we hope you will enjoy today, that you will take advantage of the contents and the discussions for your own activities. But first things first, for our online guests, let me give you a few instructions. The whole event is being recorded, so this is for your information. And if you would like to ask a question, don't hesitate to use chat or raise your hands. We will give you a space. So this is for the instructions. And before I pass the word to our project officer, Erich Koch, I would like to give you some brief context of the project and the motivation behind it. Because MSIC, the Moravian Silesian Innovation Center, who is a coordinator of the project, is a very young institution. We were founded in 2017, and it wasn't until 2020 we had some kind of advanced CRM system and a data analyst, Roman Zajc, who you will hear him today. And that's why we wanted to take this journey to dive into the topic of impact evaluations to really see what are we doing with our activities and to better design our services. We can say that it was the first step forward to the application of evidence-based policy. We would like to take this direction more profoundly. So we want to thank to our partners from Steinbeis and from Madri+d, because they are really advanced innovation supporters, and their insights really helped us. And the process of peer learning was really dynamic, despite the fact that we didn't have the chance to meet face to face. So thanks again, Stefano and Reyes, for your participation in the project. And before I pass the word, just to have more context, today speeches and discussions will be of the highest value to those who are on the starting line with the impact evaluations. They are young organizations, as we are, for example, from Slovakia, from Žilina, and also those who are willing to start this process as well from diverse spectrum of organizations. So we hope you can take advantage really of this, and those who are advanced, we believe that you can find for yourself some useful tools and good practices as well. So this is for the time being. If you have any questions or doubts or technical difficulties, so please let us know in the chat. And now I would like to give floor to Erich Koch. Good morning, Erich.
Good morning.
He will have a short presentation or a speech on peer learning of innovation agencies.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Adela, for this. Thanks for having me today. And congratulations, especially also to the organizer, the host of today's meeting, the institute, but also, of course, the three partners of the EFFECT-SME project. I have to say, it's you were not lucky. You were lucky when you got our award decision for getting the funding for the project, but then of course, that was in the midst of the Corona crisis. So I'm really glad that you managed to do something very valuable and necessary for us. And so with that, I would like to say a few words about the project and the context a little bit that Adila already mentioned. So first of all, we had here 3 agencies involved in the EFFECT-SME project, and the MSIC in Czechia, Steinbeis in Germany, and Madri+d in Spain for a year-long, or more or less year-long project. And I would like to mention here again, you will do so probably later throughout the day, but I would like to specifically mention again here the main objectives of the project, because it very well reflects the entire intention, the objective of the peer learning of innovation agencies overall action under the Horizon 2020 INNOSUP program. So you wanted to, or you wish to enhance the quality of startups and SMEs innovation support programs, and making them more efficient and effective, developing methodologies that can assess the impact of those programs and implement the changes then in your day-to-day work. Well, this is exactly the classic example of what we tried to achieve from the beginning when we set up the peer learning of innovation agencies action. And if we look more specifically on the work packages and the deliverables of the project, those are also very well reflecting actually what many other projects under the INNOSUP 5 peer learning of innovation agency scheme have used. You did a lot of relevant desk research, possibly also outside your regions in Europe. You were looking for sharing your own approaches in your regions. You were, based on that, developing new topics and approaches to better monitoring and evaluation of innovation support. Then you are trying, and this is the core actually, trying to develop an impact methodology, put it into practice in the day-to-day work, and that's why this is a European project. You want to disseminate that throughout Europe. So these are exactly the let's say the steps we wanted all other agencies to implement in the other peer learning of innovation agencies projects. So I'm really looking forward to today's discussions on well, as a teaser, and especially also the design option paper, which is the core product of the project. I would like to say a few words in general about the INNOSUP peer learning of innovation agencies action, because here we really, since 2015, want to support the exchange and this is very important, uptake of best practices in the area of innovation support to small businesses, and by innovation agencies mandated or publicly mandated or financed by the public. So the idea is really to do a better, to improve the service design, the innovation support service design, making companies, mainly small businesses, more satisfied. And this is the ultimate goal actually for us in the European Commission, making those companies more competitive. And if you look at the key performance indicators of the overall action, increase of number of agencies.
We are sorry, Eric, we lost you for a while.
Want that national and regional innovation support take up the learnings projects.
We are sorry, Eric, we cannot hear you very well.
Topics, new pilot projects. We also are looking for a wider use of quality management. So the entire concept, the methodology, was actually projects.
Eric, can you hear us? We are sorry, we lost you for a while.
Just give me a second.
Yeah. We are not sure if the error is here or.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now it's.
Okay. I'm sorry. Sometimes my headphone is switching off.
Oh.
If I'm fine now, so let me. What was the last thing you heard from me?
Like a minute ago, maybe.
Okay. Well, let me then start again from what we wanted to achieve with the peer learning action the peer learning agency program. So we have some. What we want to achieve here is really a better service design for innovation support. And the ultimate goal, and this is really the most important, is that we want to make companies more satisfied with what kind of service they get from their innovation agencies, like the three of the EFFECT-SME project. So making them more competitive. And if you look at the KPIs, the key performance indicators of the overall action on peer learning, we're looking for more innovation agencies to take up new practices in the area. We want to also governments and national and regional governments to take up those approaches, in their support to the intermediaries. And we are looking for new topics, concrete topics for service design. Now, a little bit of history here, because the action peer learning of innovation agencies dates back to 2015, when we started to fund projects like EFFECT-SME with normally 50,000 euros per project, and before that, it was based actually on the on methodologies that were developed through the Pro-Inno-Europe Partnering Forum. So this was really a very successful, let's say, attractive scheme, be it rising numbers of intermediaries like innovation agencies applying for those calls, and because this is really about a demand-driven approach. We really want to make sure that you apply for those calls because you need new input, new ideas from other agencies, and to share those practices. So, I would like to give you some ideas of what kind of projects we funded since 2015. Overall, we had 74 projects, mostly funded with 50,000 euros, and with normally between 3 and 5 innovation agencies. From those 74 projects, 8 are still running, including EFFECT-SME. So it's coming towards the end of the project. And if you look at the overall list of projects, you can distinguish between two types of projects. The first one that was focusing on more generalistic approach on the processes as such of how improving innovation support. So, for example, the question of how do innovation agencies brand themselves? How do they conceive their service design? How can they influence, in policy support, regional and national policy? And how can they also develop regional policies? And a second area, and a much wider group of projects that were targeting certain specific areas. And I would like to take this opportunity, take a minute to give you an idea of how rich the portfolio of projects was. And we had topics in the sustainability, green area, digital, manufacturing, internationalization, access to finance, clusters, IPR, open innovation. We had some of the projects targeting the European Innovation Council, or the SME instrument formerly, how to improve the services in that area. We had actions on startups, scale-ups, spin-offs. We had also actions on standards, even on social innovation, and even culture. So it's just to give you an idea. And I'm also glad to say that we had many applications from the Central, Eastern, and Southern European countries and regions. So, including today with the Czech participant. So this is because we really wanted to close the gap that possibly exists between the regions in terms of the quality of innovation support. And now I have a little pleasure before closing, actually, is to show you the first ones in the external world, outside the European Commission, to see what we actually have compiled, which is what we call a handbook of service design, which is a summary of all the 74 projects for peer learning of innovation agencies, knowing obviously that some of the projects are still running, but this is already a start. And to show it to you, how it looks, and it will be actually you will be published in the Office for Publications, the EU Office for Publications, and you will find the very interesting, general overview, obviously, but also then a summary of all the projects, all the 74 projects, and links to the DOPs, to the design option papers. And the final words is just to say that because this was so successful, I'm glad to say that although the peer learning of innovation agencies as such will not continue under Horizon Europe, we will have similar calls that will foster the collaboration between the different stakeholders in the innovation ecosystems. That's why we have now the European Innovation Ecosystems work program in 2021-2022. We will possibly also striving to not only to involve public sector like the beneficiaries of this project and SMEs or the industry, but also research and civil society. So the whole, what we call the quadruple helix, are covered, and we are striving to bring those stakeholders together. Voilà, and with that, I'm going to close. Perhaps you sent in the agenda, you asked for answer two questions. First of all, what are the biggest challenges in evaluation for you? Actually, I think you meant it more for the organizations, but I think even the European Commission has this challenge. And I can tell you that our biggest challenge when we set up calls for evaluations is to attract good applications. You would think that you're giving out money and so people will just queue up, but it's a hard fight to promote our calls. It's a noisy environment where there are many opportunities and people not aware. So it's a big challenge for us to raise awareness of European Union funded projects. And so we are counting on you. That was your second question. How can we solve this problem? Well, you are the key to that, because you as intermediaries are either yourself, beneficiaries, or you will tell small businesses and industry that they should actually apply for EU funding. Thanks for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Eric, for your contribution. We will be trying to do our best with our activities. And now let's have a quick look on the results of the Mentimeter. What better world was the most favorite impact you want to see with your activities? That's nice. What else do we have? I don't have my glasses, so sorry. New jobs, new firms, growth. I'm sorry, Roman, can you help me? I really don't have my glasses with my head.
Growth SME, exchange of experience, new jobs, set, improve mindset, build startup ecosystem, added value, happy people. Happy people, yeah. So you can see a diverse mixture of results we want to see with our activities. So hopefully our design option paper can help you to measure that later on. And now it's my pleasure to invite Professor Blažek to take the floor. He will give us his keynote speech on variegated and changing, shifting contexts for innovation policies.
So good morning, everybody. I'm very pleased to be invited to this very interesting conference. What I would like to do in my presentation is to talk about the context for innovation policies and their evaluation. And I will argue in my presentation that the context is strongly variegated on the one hand and constantly shifting on the other, from which follows a lot of implications. I will start by saying that there are three basic phases of justification of policies and especially of innovation policies and as a result also of evaluations. But just start with the justification why to perform any policies, industrial, regional innovation and so on. The first generation of justification for innovation policies was the effort to moderate disadvantages of some subjects, of small firms, of firms located in peripheral regions, and so on. So the first generation was basically the paradigm of leveling the playing field. The second phase of innovation policy was substantially different. And the key argument of the second generation of innovation and other policies was that the performance of an actor, be it a company or a research center, does not depend only on its own capabilities and capacities, but also on the quality of surrounding environment. Therefore, also the quality of the overall environment is important for performance of public administration, university, company, and so on. And therefore, in contrast to neoclassical thinking, which suppose that basically market transactions are taking place among atomized and mostly anonymous subjects, the systemic views, the systemic rationale for innovation and other policies is based on the perception that the system should somehow work, and there might be synergies which might be enhanced and so on. And therefore, we are trying to eliminate various imperfections within the system. For example, there might be a limited collaboration between companies or between companies and universities, and so on and so on. So this is the second generation of innovation policies, the second justification. The third, the current justification of innovation policies is connected with what we all know well, and this is the mission-led innovation policies, which is in fact effort to facilitate and to encourage transformation of the society in a pre-selected direction to address these grand societal challenges like circular economy, demographic aging, obviously climate change, and so on. So this is the third current generation of justification of innovation policies. It is in a way cumulative. So we are not losing sight of the first and second phase, but it is in a nature a cumulative understanding and cumulative justification of innovation policies. Obviously, these innovation policies are being performed in vastly different contexts. For example, just compare the the networks of high-speed trains in Central and Eastern Europe and compare it with the one in Western Europe. So there are vast differences in infrastructure. This is very simple. There are vast differences in economic structure, not only in terms of industries, that somewhere is textile, somewhere is ICT and electronics and so on, but also, for example, in terms of ownership. So very different role of foreign companies versus endogenous companies. So economic structure matters, and there are huge differences. Obviously, there are vast differences in terms of natural assets. No need to elaborate on this. In geographic position, no need to elaborate. Everybody knows what is peripherality and what is to be in the center and so on. There are huge differences in terms of quality of human resources and closely related in the quality of institutional framework, by which we mean quality of legislation, quality of education policies, quality and sophistication of supportive policies, a level of cooperation in the region, level of trust in the region, and so on. And there is an agreement in the literature that two of these assets are of prominent importance. And this is, first, the quality of institutional framework, and second, the specialization versus diversification of economic structure of the regions. And on the basis of these two criteria, you can make various typologies of regions and you can find where a region is. Just to illustrate the scale of differences in endowment of regions by particular assets, I have selected this example. What you can see here are three European macro regions: Western Europe, Southern Europe, Eastern and Central Europe. And finally, the last 3 columns are for Czechia, just for illustration. And what you can see here are really vast differences in volume, in overall volume of R&D expenditures among these regions. And in addition, I will argue in the next slide that the of key value are the blue ones, which is the business or private expenditures on R&D by private companies. What is positive about this otherwise quite perhaps stunning figure is that there is a discernible dynamism in Central Eastern Europe, including Czechia, that actually over the period investigated, the business expenditure more than doubled, which means that there is some dynamism, and we already get, for example, above, as Czechia, above the average of not only of Central Eastern Europe, but even we are above the average of Southern Europe. So there is certain dynamism, but the gap is still profound. This is related, this previous figure is related with this one. We know all that in Europe, officially we distinguish 4 categories of regions according to their innovation performance. Innovation leaders, strong innovators, then modest and moderate innovators. And what you can see here is that there is a neat tendency in the pattern what we can observe. So namely in these strong and innovation leaders, we can see that there is a predominance or balance between the private and public R&D expenditures, or even that there is a predominance of private expenditures on R&D. On the other hand, if you look at the bottom of the figure, you can see these innovation laggards or these low-performing regions in innovation, and they are typical by a dominance of public sector funding of R&D. So the key issue is not lack of public funding in these regions, but lack of absorptive capacities and innovation demands among local companies. This is my favorite figure, which shows another important vast structural difference among European regions. What you can see here is the number of employees in headquarters of transnational corporations. And these transnational corporations typically in these global value chains, global production networks, typically occupy the top of the hierarchy. So either they are lead firms of these global value chains, like Volkswagen, IBM, Apple, Boeing, and so on, or they are so-called first-tier suppliers. So these first-tier suppliers are called system integrators and so on, mega suppliers sometimes, which are providing the most sophisticated and most complex products within the given industry. So from this figure neatly follows that we don't have too much of these lead firms and first-tier suppliers, and typically our economic structure is dominated by lower-tier suppliers, which are supplying typically relatively, the word relatively is important, relatively simple products, which means that the challenges of these low-tier suppliers in comparison with lead firms and high-tier suppliers are completely different challenges, completely different opportunities. Now in regional research, there is a shift from emphasizes all these structures, which I was until now elaborating. And there is more and more stress being given to soft factors of regional development, especially to institutional quality, institutional framework, I already mentioned a little bit, but also to the role of agency is the activity of actor, and also of leadership. And I will briefly touch upon these. In current thinking, usually 2 sorts of activity of actor or agency are being distinguished. The first type or first level of activity of actor is agency, which is directed inside the organization, inside the company, inside university, and so on. And the second type of agency is activity of actor, which is primarily directed outside beyond the boundaries of the given organization. In fact, the the main motivation of the system level agency is to enhance the overall quality of the surrounding environment, which we call the regional innovation system or ecosystem. So this is this organizational and system level agency. And now in this figure, I have a simplified model of various constellations, relations between this organizational level agency, how firms are active, how universities are active in the particular region, and on the other hand, how strong is activity of actors to cultivate, to enhance, to improve the overall innovation environment in the region. And there are various constellations, and what I'm trying to show by this figure is that it is not only sufficient to have strong dynamic activism agency within boundaries. That means firms are actively changing and searching for new opportunities, new technologies, and so on. And there is a strong activity of system level agency, which means there is somebody who is considering the system as its own, and there is a need to cultivate the system. But what I'm trying to say is that the key is to have proper interface between the organizational level agency, between what's going on in firms and what's going on at the regional level. So the nature of the interaction, the nature of the interaction, the extent of the interaction, the intensity of the interaction is of key importance, and whether it yields synergies. So the left hand should know what the right hand is doing. Without these strong and synergistic interactions, you wouldn't move that much. So actually, the bottom figure, the strong plus intensive synergic interaction. This is the strategic goal of any innovation company, of any region, because this is exactly what should be achieved. So strong activity within the firms, within the universities, and so on. Strong activity at the regional level to cultivate the environment, plus synergic interactions. This is what I exactly just said. Now, a few observations on leadership. There are three main definitions or dimensions of leaders. To be a personality, a regional leader, we should satisfy three criteria. The first criteria is to have a strong but realistic, that's very important, to have a realistic vision, strong and realistic vision first. Second is ability to create, to build, and especially to sustain, I would underline, to sustain consensus. That's very important, to build and sustain consensus, because inevitably there will be conflicts. And the key role of leaders is to be able to bridge these conflicts and to sustain consensus. And the third dimension is the ability to feel responsibility or co-responsibility of the overall surrounding environment for the region. And obviously the leadership should have also results. And now it's very nice that if they are able to manifest that their results, that their activities are leading to some results. And obviously here we come to this evidence-based evaluation. But before going briefly to this evidence-based evaluation, I would stress that the key word of evaluation is not measurement of achieved results in terms of whatever metrics might be, but the key word in connection with evaluation is learning, to learn something. That's very important. And now, obviously, all these evidence-based evaluations are looking at the number of jobs which were created, number of patents which were granted or applied, what was the effectivity and effectiveness of different instruments and policies and so on. These evaluations usually distinguish between short-term, long-term effects and direct and indirect effects and so on, which is all fine and very useful. However, I would argue that even more important are those less tangible or even intangible effects, like that new contacts are being established via various supporting instruments and so on, that mutual trust has been established or enhanced, among actors. And currently, in the literature, we usually distinguish between initial and deep trust, and so on. So there are different forms of trust. That this is not issue, I believe, for Moravia Silesia region, but for other Czech region, it might be the case to enhance regional identity, because some Czech regions are having a strong problem with regional identity. It's practically missing. Or another intangible assets or effect is to ensure to complement mutual knowledge. So complementarity of knowledge of different actors, which is leading towards better understanding of challenges and opportunities. And also in some cases, it could lead even to ability to engage, to help to others, to share know-how, to mentor others who are in fact following somehow those who are serving as role models and so on. And even to share, for example, distribution channels and so on. And now there is important point. These intangibles can be either more or less random side effects of what you are doing, or these can be a result of a very careful design of interventions in which you are trying to targetedly achieve also these effects. So not only this number of jobs, but also these intangibles. And this would lead to enhancement of the overall institutional quality. And now, Kevin Morgan, who is one of the top leading European figures in innovation policy and its evaluation, recently argued that institutional quality is a fundamental precondition first for a localized learning in a region, but especially for policy learning. That's very important. And he emphasized, this is a little bit provocative, but I would subscribe to it, that the key to success is not an obsession with selection of the proper policy instruments, but rather getting the process of engagements of key stakeholders right. So getting the process of engagement of key actors right, that this is much more important than particular type of instrument. You can also compare with the entrepreneurial discovery process within the smart specialization, which is actually mode of engagement or enhanced engagement of key actors. Yeah. And Kevin Morgan is always stressing that the key for success is the nature and honesty, and I would add also timeliness of feedback mechanisms. So what kind of feedback mechanisms those who are performing, especially these system level agencies, so trying to cultivate the regional innovation ecosystem, what kind of feedback they are receiving, how honest it is, how timely it is, and what is the nature of it. And he argues that the quality of these feedback mechanisms is absolutely crucial, as is the ability of various actors, be it universities, companies, public administration, very important, to learn. To conclude, so what I was trying to say is that innovation policies, as well as their evaluation, should be strongly context sensitive. This context is vastly different. Therefore, you may take significant inspiration from other regions, but always there is a need to rethink and to embed all these inspirations to the present context. You might have the same industry as other region, but if the economic fabric of their region consists of lead firms and first-tier suppliers, and we have third-tier suppliers, then we have completely different. I'm from Faculty of Science, so I'm always saying that we have different animals. So it is like if you are feeding rabbit and dog by the same food, which is not working properly. So you have to distinguish that you are having completely different firms, even within the single industry. Then there are ever-changing opportunities and challenges. So, for example, in your evaluation, you can find what worked best in the past, what was the most cost-efficient instrument, and so on. But the question is it still efficient today? And will it still be efficient tomorrow, especially given the fact what's going in the East, unfortunately, and so on. So 1 month ago, everything completely different. So what I'm trying to say here is that on the one hand, the support system should be sufficiently stable and transparent to be accessible and understandable for those you would like to assist. On the other hand, there should be a flexibility and ability to read the future, to adjust these programs and policies to incoming opportunities and also challenges or even threats as currently. So in fact, those who are responsible for design of policies, and I wouldn't dare to say sophisticated policies, is actually their role is to be a policy innovator. So not only support innovation in companies, but you are in fact policy innovator, constantly rethinking what you are doing, whether what you are doing is still relevant and so on. And if there would be a single argument from my presentation to take away, so please, this would be this last sentence. And this is, the key challenge is, on the one hand, to keep the overview and understanding of these global challenges and global trends and global trajectories. So where you would like to see your region in 5, 10, 15 years and so on, what's going on in the world, the macro level, that's the first. And the second is to keep the detail in technical specification of your support program right. And these are completely different knowledge domains, but these should be combined to achieve something. So any policy initiative should be well embedded in well comprehended global trends and evolutionary trajectory of the region on the one hand, and in the same time, technical administrative details should be designed in such a way not only to achieve more jobs, more patents and so on, but also these intangibles like this level of trust and regional identity and so on. So good luck in this, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Blažek. And now to give space to our audience. There might be some questions that arise from this very inspirational speech.
I've got one. Jiří, from your perspective, what is the key difference in intangible atmosphere, maybe cultural things, between the West and the East of Europe in terms of evidence-based policy and in terms of who wants what at the level of policy decision makers, at the level of, let's say, C-level management of change agencies?
It's a very good question and very difficult one. I will answer it directly. But before, I would say that I wouldn't overgeneralize the differences, obviously, because you can find very capable and very visionary personalities both in the East and West, even their number or their share might differ. But so I wouldn't exaggerate the role of this generation. But my feeling is that the basic difference is that we in the Central and Eastern Europe typically are thinking how to do the current things better, how to improve what we are doing currently, while in the West, there is a widely shared perception from the top, from the elite, even to fishermen and so on, that the fundamental transformation is needed, that they should move to new areas. So we distinguish in this area several types of evolutionary trajectory of regions, and the most passive or the most the least favorable trajectory is past extension, which basically you are doing what you were doing in the past with just slight adjustment. And the opposite type of trajectory is new path creation. So you believe that you should create something completely new in comparison with these global trends and so on. So for example, let's take this environmental Green Deal and environmental innovation and all these climate change and so on. You can consider it as a basic threat for the economy, which is currently there, or as a major opportunity for you, which you can use and effectively. So this is the basic difference in my case. The different understanding of dynamism of evolution. So generally, personalities and leaders in the most developed regions understand well that they should always never stop and always shift to new areas. This is this kind of dynamism. This is the basic difference in my.
Could you take us through your thought process? So if you come into a new region, what would you look at, and based on what would you set up the KPIs that you would track, and how would you track them?
Yeah, that's a very obviously challenging question. Basically, the key understanding is that your past informs the current perception of the current situation, and also informs the future, how you perceive the future. So, in fact, there are many strategies how to do on this, but the key in my understanding would be to find who is who in the region, and both in companies and at universities, at research centers, and so on. What are their ambition, and to what extent they are willing to engage beyond their boundaries? So this would be perhaps the starting point. I wouldn't exaggerate the role of metrics. Sorry for saying this at evaluation conference at the beginning. I would rather opt to what Kevin Morgan is always saying, to get the process of engagement right. By the way, Kevin Morgan is vice rector of the University of Cardiff for engagement. This is fascinating. Prorector for engagement, vice rector for engagement. So the process of engagement. So by the way, I mentioned these 3 phases of innovation policy justification, and the key argument of the 3rd generation is not to pick the winners, but to pick the willing to engage, those that are willing to participate in this, to respond to these grand societal challenges and to transform the region. So pick the willing. So the first point would be to pick the willing, those who are willing to change and to engage activity beyond the boundaries of organization.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from our? Oh, yeah, that's right.
I like your, let's say, key elements which you mentioned. I think that this institutional quality and existence is quite crucial, because there are many regions who speak about innovation, but they don't have capacities and capable agencies. And if it is like this, it's just marketing, not real shift. But what about continuity? Because I think that it is maybe the 3rd major component, continuity, because you need to create and change the culture, and it needs a lot of time. And I think that it's also intangible. It was mentioned somehow, but this continuity is very, very important according to me. What's your opinion?
Yes, I would very strongly support this view. This was what I was trying to say by this past dependency, that your perception of the future is strongly linked to your experience from the past. So, for example, if there was fun failure, it can discourage you from another ventures, even into sensible activity. So this is the past, and future is strongly related. And obviously, if you are moving to, let's say, new past creation, to completely new venture, it needs to be kept in mind that the risks are vastly different in those capable, dynamic, and institutionally advanced regions in comparison with those regions which are lacking these assets. So this is very strongly related to what you are saying. But still, of course, you can always, this is the point is to have a strong vision, but realistic vision. to be aware of the overall picture where I am, what is realistic and what is not realistic. So, for example, I like very much city of Český Krumlov, but once 20 years ago, they wanted to attract high-tech industries. They have just 2 secondary schools. So how can you attract high-tech industries into Český Krumlov, despite the fact that we might all like the city? So to be realistic and still have strong vision. So this would be my answer.
We have one question from the online audience. Mrs. Verstrova thanks you for your presentation, and she asks if you have any inspiration how to measure or assess these intangible effects. For example, trust. Can you do that?
This is very topical issue. I think I can say it in one of the regions. Currently, in one of the Czech regions, there is an evaluation project which is just starting, and it has 3 pillars. And one of those pillars of evaluations is exactly devoted to develop a methodology for measuring long-term evolution of trust in the region. Long term. So I would say that this is that even institutions are notoriously difficult to measure, even less so with trust. But what I already indicated are different types of trust, and the first studies in these directions are already proceeding. So it is obviously a challenge, but still it doesn't mean that you should be discouraged not to do anything and so on. So for example, very simple case, when I was trying to launch or to facilitate launching smart specialization in Czech regions, there was a key question: if vice hetman, for example, vice governor, invite businesses, business leaders, entrepreneurs to a meeting, what number, how many of them would come to the meeting, and what would be their mindset with which they are coming to meet this vice governor? This differed fundamentally among the regions. And I would even said one more thing, which is related to what Zdeněk asked. This is a long-term process. You can inevitably, it's naive to think that after 3 years you can put on the table some both tangible and intangible effects. It will always take, in South Moravia, which is probably the leader in Czechia, it took at least a decade. And still, I hope that there are not too many people from South Moravia, but if you take Brno, for example, it is the Brno city is still one of the most affected cities and city regions in terms of unemployment. Few people would know they are among top 15 districts according to level of unemployment. So despite all the successes which were achieved, and they are unquestionable, there are still substantial challenges despite the 15 years or 17 years, I don't know, existence of really proactive and very sophisticated approach. So it is always a run for a long distance.
Can I add one?
Sure.
How to measure it? What's your opinion? With regard to trust,
yeah.
Can be also measured according to speed of interactions and decisions between different actors.
For example, quite frankly, I would have to think very, very carefully to be able to answer how to measure trust. But there will be many indirect. Would they come to the meeting? How many of them would come to the meeting? What is, for example, the share of repeated collaborations, and so on and so on. And keep in mind the key distinction between the initial and deep trust. Initial trust is the trust towards the person which you have never met before, and deep trust is already trust to one with you already cooperated. What you will share with him, what kind of information, how sensitive the information will be. I remember there was one meeting between academics and entrepreneurs, and this was quite heated debate, you can imagine. And at the end, the entrepreneur said, "Okay, we will collaborate with universities, provided the topic is not crucial for our competitiveness." So total mistrust, actually, that this will be disclosed. On the other hand, Ladislav Glovar always response to these fears by saying, look at Facebook, with whom your engineers are communicated. Your seemingly unique knowledge is totally only in your head, because they know it also, but they also wouldn't tell you. So this is about the understanding, and even the competitors can in cases collaborate mutually. So for example, Apple and Samsung, they have many court cases against each other, but in some key aspects they are collaborating. So the key challenge is even how to find a space for collaboration even among direct competitors. So for example, I know in Brno, there is a hydro cluster, and when they are on Czech market, they are competing and fiercely competing mutually. But if they are going for a big contracts in abroad, they are collaborating. Yeah. So this can be kind of indication, but this is a homework for me to think about how to measure trust. Yeah. Okay, I can take it. Yeah.
Someone is typing, so we will wait.
Okay.
And I think it's
From Brno, by the way.
Yeah.
I should leave.
So what are the best practices to strengthen trust and collaboration between regions and national level institutions?
I wouldn't say that there is any given recipe to enhance and build trust. I think that it is strongly on personal chemistry and on individual basis. You would simply trust to someone, and you would have good reasons to do it. And in some cases, it will be very difficult, and you know that you wouldn't go through. I understand that, especially in our country, in Czechia, there is a very strong cleavage between what regions are doing and how some central organizations, ministries are performing certain things. So I'm aware of this cleavage, and I don't think that there is any swift fix to it. On the other hand, I believe that there are more of regional innovation centers and development agencies and technology parks and so on will be in the regions. If they would be able to form an informal platform and to form a single voice against this, or I wouldn't say against, I would say vis-a-vis national level, this would be one of the mechanisms how to achieve at least something.
Maybe also our international guests would have some tips or maybe a comment to share if is this the same problem in Spain or Germany, or you have overcome this issue of national level versus regional level? Stefano?
Hi Adela, if you want, I can go ahead. This is Reyes SANSEGUNDO from Madrid. I totally agree with the professor, because I think it depends on the relationship that you build with people. People are everything, and at least in our case, we are a foundation. I will introduce you afterwards, but we connect the dots regionally and also at the national level in European programs and technology transfer. And the relationships among a specific, for instance, ministry has been very good or very bad, depending on the people that were our contacts for a concrete issue. So I would say that you need to build the trust on your relationships with the people that are in the jobs that you need to, or in the positions that you need to contact with them. And in my personal experience, the same institution, the same program, the same support activity could run really smoothly or not, depending on the manager or the chemistry that you have with this person.
Thank you very much, Reyes. Is there any other comment?
Yeah, perhaps if I may add, maybe it sounds, let's say, simple, but also the structure of the country, it actually mattered, because, for example, in Germany, we are a federal system, let's say, and also the proximity with the regional government, which has a lot of power and also a lot of funding in this sense, yeah, to support industrial priorities, to support innovation policies, and so on and so forth. This is also something that, of course, matters because the proximity with the decision maker, with a public decision maker, is also shorten, let's say, the chain of decision, the chain of control, and so on and so forth. And it can be more effective from a perspective of innovation agency, which has more, let's say, voice, yeah, and the voice is more close to the people who is actually managing and implementing decisions. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Blažek, again for your contribution. And let's have a short break, 10 minutes, and we will meet here again 11:10. You can help yourself and have a coffee or some kind of snack. Okay, so we are online again. Hope you enjoyed your break. And now we will do a very big jump into the practical part. Martin Klepek from Silesian University, he will present us with the basics or with the best points of the desk research we carried out throughout this project. So please come, Martin.
Thank you. Hello. It's always a pleasure to speak after someone with life experiences in evaluations. No pressure at all on me. So hopefully I will follow with some ideas from Professor Blažek, and the point of my presentation, or the main outcome of my presentation, is to show you what we already introduced in the DOP. We were doing desk research. We were looking at definitions and methods. So anyone who is interested in evaluation could have a brief introduction into what evaluations are. So we first use the definition of impact evaluation. It's helping different stakeholders to see how well the program has achieved in intended goals. What is the goal? We were discussing it. Is it the engagement? Is it the trust? Is the job created? Is basically the word cloud you are sending into many. So what is the objective? What is the intended objective of the program? So we then find some good characteristics of evaluation. What should evaluation content? So they should be analytical. So used the recognized research methods should be used, meaning are we using surveys? Are we using data mining? Are we using interviews, questionnaires? Are we observing what's happening? Are we observing the change? So luckily there are decades of research in research methods, so we have it in place. This is not the case to introduce all of them here in a design option paper, just to drive attention to possible evaluators that there are some research methods which could be used to make it more analytical. Then the evaluation should be systematic. They require careful planning, especially for those who are beginning, who are at the starting stage with evaluation. Since once you collect the data, it's very hard if you find out that it's not working out to go back in time and collect them again. So data collection should be carefully planned, and consistent use of these techniques. So once we collect data, somehow we should collect them as well, so we can compare the changes. So reliable, which means when someone else will do the same analysis, they would yield to the same result. It's connected with reliability of data. Then we were talking throughout the pillar learning as well about the issue-oriented approach. So any evaluation should have evaluator should have in mind what's the issue here I'm trying to solve. Sometimes I have students coming to me and asking, I have a 35 question questionnaire. Is it right? Is it enough? Again, I'm asking them, what's the research question? That's the first point. If you can solve the research question with just 2 questions in questionnaire, that's enough. And number of questions in questionnaire will not help us to get better results or better evaluation. So what's the issue here? What's the key issue we are trying to solve with evaluation? And then user-driven, which means there are different users, different stakeholders, which will be using the evaluation as output for their decisions. So this is very important for evaluator to understand who is the final user. So this is something what we go through and created a table for anyone new in evaluation would understand that there are different types of users of evaluation. Obviously there are more, but we focus on 2 big parts, big stakeholders. So first is external and internal. The first example would be government, city council, funding agency. And the main purpose of the evaluation for them would be accountability. Is it working? Is what you are doing, is it working? Is the policy working? And then what effect have occurred and what the scale of this effect? And the time frame focus would be before, after. And obviously there is internal evaluation, which will probably be much richer in indicators, because there is this main purpose of learning, as Professor Blažek said, We want to learn what's happening in the program. We want to learn to not just be accountable for someone who will send us money. So we can tell them it's working by input and output, but also for us as an innovation agency and anyone doing evaluation to know what is happening, why the things are happening. And their time frame would be before, during, and after. Okay, so now we know the users and what purpose the evaluation outcome has would be accountability, for sure, then learning as well. And the third part would be promotion, which we get nice feedback from our reviewers, that also the evaluation is a promotional tool. And for me, as a guy with a background in marketing, obvious, you know, for politicians, for regional government, the promotion of the evaluation means that the program is working, so they can say that, hey, look, it's working. We are investing in this policy. It's working. We done it. We are solving some issue. So the promotion of the impact of the programs are source for also for government and city councils and so on. And then the other part also for internal evaluator, promotion and then using the material for evaluation for promotion is crucial, since they can attract new prospects, you know. And there were already discussion that sometimes it's hard to attract the prospects for the program. So good promotions and telling that the program is working. If you join us, we can help you with jobs created or funds raised and so on. So this is also one outcome, one purpose of the outcome. And throughout going through the frameworks for understanding the impact, we found several very similar schemes. We are using this one from EU, since it's EU project, but you will find across the literature and across the internet many similar ones, which are basically distinguishing impact and output. And we found it crucial within our discussions and peer learning that we sometimes focus only on output, not the impact. The question would be here, so what's the impact, what's the outcome, what's the result? But for now, it would be just nice if we focus on output. We have a program. The program for entrepreneurship study program. And as the output, we could say that graduate is the output, you know, but having graduate doesn't mean that we have impact in the society. We didn't change anything, just produce the graduate. So the next level as a result would be the graduate who is actually entrepreneur, who become entrepreneur after graduation. So, and from the long-term perspective, we can say that if the entrepreneur is creating jobs, the graduate who become entrepreneur and creating job, that could be the final outcome, the final impact on the society. And there are some universities, as one of the presentation of Professor Zalani, we were with Dalibor and Tsinezi, said that there are some universities in the United States who are measuring basically their impact by jobs created by the graduates, which is, you know, the level of impact I want to measure. So we want to introduce this scheme. It will be in the DOP, so anyone interested in evaluation can consider what I'm going to measure and what is the level of the measurement. Is it just output or is the result or outcome? Then we were focusing on indicators. What is the indicators? How can we use the indicators? Sometimes the indicator helps us to find what's currently happening, and we can use an indicator to have a prediction and observe the change. And sometimes they are designed in the program itself. When the program is developing, there are already indicators, not only objectives. But sometimes, as we were discussing within the peer learning session, sometimes you have just the vague objectives of the program, but you don't really have an indicator. So you have to build your indicators, and that's why we build a long list of indicators, which will be in final DOP, and we are trying to show possible indicators, possible ways, possible areas which could be measured, which could be evaluated. So first reason is for inspiration. So any new innovation center could look at the long list and think about different perspectives, different areas which could be measured. And then obviously the discussion started about the standardization. If you think about it, if there is a innovation center, for example, supporting entrepreneurship, then how do they measure the output, the impact of the program? And is there a way how we can make it closer together so we can compare different programs? Is it possible? So that this is a field for discussion. We want to start with the long list, and we want to make it available online, so everybody who wants to see it can comment as well and make it a bit interactive and initiate the discussion about standardization. There was already good discussion about how we can measure trust. Is there any innovation center who is already doing it, measuring it? Is there some output from the process which could be shared amongst other innovation centers? And so from you are talking mainly about the quantitative measures, quantitative indicators, and there are some methodological steps which we wanted to show the reader. So we from what to measure, we focused on how to measure. I just show some critical view on some of the measures, some of the approaches we can take. So first would be we can measure the change rate pre and post change, and basically this is an easy comparison. What happened before the intervention, then the intervention happened, what happening after. It's very easy. However, there is a tricky part which we want to share with the reader and just to pay attention to it. So then there might be development. So we now see it's nice. We have impact. We have some intervention, but it might be that the trajectory was different, so there is no impact at all. So the impact is opposite than we thought. So the outcome is not getting better, but actually slowing down. The outcome is slowing down. So then the next step would be collecting longitudinal data, and by longitudinal data we have past data which we can predict the future on and see if there is effect. But there is another tricky part that what if the whole market, what if the control group is behaving the same? So then we don't have, again, we hardly can say that the intervention helped. So the last part would be experiment with control groups. You have a control group of companies, participating group, and you can see the difference. And obviously with discussions of the practitioner who are doing the evaluations, we sometimes have this ideal world of how to measure stuff, but then there is a practice and the reality of what is feasible. So we are paying attention to having the good balance between the precision of the method and feasibility. So we say that it's kind of, I portray it as a steps to evaluation heaven. At the top, there is some randomized control trial, which is method which basically splits the participants and non-participants randomly. And by the definition, it's in 99% of cases, it's not possible because you're selecting your participants by their proposals. It means there is no randomness. And then you go slowly down from, you lose some precision, but you gain feasibility. So then you have quasi-experiments. It's still having a control group of non-participants in the program. If you're not capable of doing it, because there are some another methodological problems, how to find the twinning or the matched group, matched company. So as a father of twins, I know that even the twins are not the same. So finding the company which would create the control group would be not feasible. So then at least longitudinal data or pre and post change data. So you go down from the steps to reality, what is feasible. And again, if this is the program which uses less public money or small amount of public money, there will be not reasonable to force evaluator to use the quasi experiments. It's always cost benefit analysis to it. Okay, and then from this we created the decision diagram, just quickly yes or no questions for program designers, so they can yield to the method they can use to measure the impact of their programs. So this will be also in the DOP. And my part was focused on key impact indicators and the accountability, basically. However, there are not only what question, but there's also why question. So some measurable indicators and some intangible, as Professor Blažek said, things are not easy to measure, but are very valuable for in iteration design of program. So we are trying to get better every round. We are trying to understand what's happening. And sometimes the quantitative measure will not help you to answer the question. So there should be some qualitative methods used. So to learn new things, you really sometimes needs to go deeper, maybe one-on-one with companies, asking them what was right, what was wrong, what are the cause of the problems in the program. So something what we are not capable of seeing from the aggregated data on some key impact indicator. So that's basically it from the introduction into the evaluations. We wanted to draw attention on some methodological problems with some quantitative data collection, and we also want to introduce a framework for qualitative research and qualitative indicators, and the indicators which would be focused on why things are happening in the program, which will be introduced by my colleagues later on. And so that's it. That's my part, and I would leave you with accountability and learning. Very important, both of them, not just to be accountable, not just to say that, hey, government, from this money I developed this, but why, what was the cause, and learn and make a better program next time. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Martin. Maybe we will give you space for answering the questions after Roman and Dalibor will present their key findings. So let me invite you here. Dalibor Šimek, who is Martin's colleague, was also part of the project, and Roman Zajíc, who is our data analyst, will be taking part too.
So hello everyone, my name is Dalibor, and together with Roman, we will present some bits on some part from our DOP, design option paper. Basically, as was already mentioned, our As was already mentioned, our project was basically forced to be online because of the COVID-19 situation. So our every peer learning sessions was held and were facilitated through online collaboration tool. And because of that, we were forced to basically create structure that we was able to introduce our support programs and introduce our types of evaluation to each other. And based on that, we created a process that is suitable for introducing these evaluation processes to each other. And we think that this is something that was really valuable for us, and we want to share this basically work for others. So we created this guide that is guiding the participants or beginning innovation agencies or other organizations who are starting basically with the evaluation through the step-by-step process of how to create their evaluation process. And of course, it is done in the Miro board or online collaboration tool. We already have set in place this structure. And as I said, it was really useful for us. So we want to create this for others. Basically, the main purpose is that, or the vision is that we want to create something like evaluation process canvas. I think you are all familiar with Lean Canvas, Business Model Canvas, and all these type of canvases, because the purpose is quite clear that it's basically simplify the complex reality. And as we already heard, the evaluation is quite hard to pick. So we want from the beginners in the evaluation to have really easy for use tool that they can go quickly through and have, you know, the evaluation process on some board that is really great for sharing with others, receiving feedback, and basically talking about their evaluation with their peers, with their experts, and so on. So we created this structure in the Miro board that everyone can use it in the Miro, and everyone can use it, you know, to receive feedback and basically collaborate on the process. So this is one of the part of the process, how it look like in a Miro board. We now currently working on, you know, working to some details, and now we have 8-step structure, and Roman will basically go through all these 8 steps and show how we implemented these steps on the case of MSIC Expand program and their evaluation. So that is from my perspective, just to introduce the context, and now I will you know, put word to Roman, and he will introduce the structure.
Thank you, Dalibor. Hello, everyone. My name is Roman Zajíc. As it was said before, I work as a data analyst here in MSIC. So before I go to my part, as Professor Blažek said, context is important. So let's make it this part as I see it from the context of MSIC. Yeah, the MSIC as a young innovation center that was established in the July 2017. And just last year, 2021, we did the first evaluations ever in this MSIC, also from my side. So these were the first evaluations ever done by myself. As it's said there were internal midterm, let's say interim evaluations, and I will speak about it later on. Why did we decide to do that? Because, as also Professor Blažek said, learning was important for us to learn how to make the evaluations and to learn what are the impacts of our activities, our programs towards the companies. Also, we wanted to learn from that and improve our programs. So this is why. How did we do it? We just stepped there. Yeah, we wanted to do just learning by doing. We'll try find out easily and fastly how to work it on. We wanted to improve ourselves. Also, as you see here, we think about this project, EFFECT-SME. So we had the possibility to share our knowledge with the colleagues from Madri+d and Steinbeis. So these are the 8 steps that you are seeing first. Also, our colleagues from Steinbeis and Madri+d are seeing this on the first, because it was quite a collaboration with colleagues from Silesian University. So these are just basic steps, or let's say it's a structure, it's a recommendation from our perspective how to make this evaluation. It's not perfect, definitely it's not perfect, but this is something what we see there is some kind of value. It can help us to make the evaluations. I will go briefly through all these steps, and I will show you some examples from our perspective. So the first step is to define the purpose of evaluation project. It's connected to the type of evaluation we are making. Yeah, we can see these three types of evaluations. The first one is anti-evaluation. The second one, evaluation during implementation. This is something we say interim or midterm evaluation, and the last one, ex post evaluation. In the first one, we are monitoring the environment. We are trying to define socioeconomic changes, some intended changes we want to do through our programs. In the second one, we want to see how it's progressing, what are the impacts already done or caused by the programs. And the last one is after some time to see what really were the impacts. So for us, last year was about these interim midterm evaluations. We wanted to find out some intended or unintended impacts. We wanted to learn, and we want to prepare for this ex post evaluation that will come in the future. So this is why we decided to do, this was the purpose of the evaluation, the first step. The second step, we wanted to specify the program. We had some specifications, but as we are a young innovation agency, we didn't have it, let's say, this is the picture of the last program. For example, this is a cyber security audit, that there's some logic frame created during the creation of the program, but in the beginning, it didn't have something structured. There was some introduction to the program, some basic information. So now through this evaluation, we, let's say, redefined formalized the program specifications or the goals. Just put it there because through the time there were also different project owners of the programs. So it kind of changed. Maybe the goal was a bit missing, a bit unclear. So we specified it again to really have a clear view. What are the goals of each of the program we want to evaluate? The second step. The third step, we wanted to, as Martin said in his presentation, we needed to define the key stakeholders. There are just a few examples who can there be, but for us was let's say neither of them. It was a mixture. It was our board of directors said, yeah, this is something we need. We need it for future cooperation with the regional government, and we need also for ourselves to improve ourselves. So this was the key stakeholder for us, and that's why how we started. The fourth step, intended socioeconomic changes. They should be created or found out during this ex-ante evaluation, should be there in the program specification. We didn't have it, let's say, defined, precisely defined in the beginning. So this is some example of these changes created for our expand. That's also someone known Platinum program. For example, just to say what new process innovations were implemented in SMEs or new strategic partnerships were established. There's an example. As I'm in the middle of this process, look at it as really just a brief example. This is in more detail will be explained in the DOP, and this templates are connected with it. The fifth, method selection. They are connected with the purpose of the evaluation. So for us, we were discussing cost and benefit, also how relevant they are towards the size of the companies participating in projects. So for us, for these midterm interim evaluations, we decided to take a qualitative analysis of these intended or unintended changes. How did we collect the data? There are also different ways. You can do it internally, externally, use questionnaire interviews. Martin was speaking about it. There are many other methods. So for us, really in the beginning, for us, one way was online questionnaire. Especially during COVID-19 crisis, there was no other way how to approach the companies. And later on, we had the possibility, and we wanted to discuss these impacts with companies more. So we had in-depth interviews. Two methods very easily used or picked. So when we had this data, we wanted to analyze them. There are a lot of various methods, less or more sophisticated. For us, it was really simple. We didn't use any sophisticated methods because for us, so far, we didn't need it. I'm not saying we will need it later on, we will, but so far really use some simple statistics, let's say common sense. Yeah, we wanted to analyze qualitative data from the companies, to put there in the order to really see what's happening there and to speak about it. So this is from the beginning, really easy. And the last one, when we have this conclusion, some results, there should be some lessons learned that we want to implement. There should be really clear and well explained towards to the relevant users who can use them in the future development of the program, future development of the policies. So there were some minor program improvements, and also there was this, let's say, evaluation design improvements. This flow which I'm presenting now, it was created, let's say, a few weeks ago. Yeah, so during the year we really were learning by doing again and trying to improve ourselves. So this is something we have now. Yeah, there's the flow. You can see the two circles. As I see these 8 steps. Yeah, we will go through this process again as we are planning another evaluation, and we will improve it. Also as well, let's share with others, how can we improve it? That is something important for us, for me as well, learning. So what are the next steps after all of this? It was said before, there's a DOP that should be finished, design option paper finished in the end of March. It will be shared with all of you. There should be this long list of indicators, also these mirror templates, so you can look on it and we can discuss, share how are your experience with us, sharing I think it's really important. And there's just some random thoughts. Let's say there's also space for collaboration with the indicators, methods, outputs, or some benchmarking evaluations. Yeah, if there are some common indicators, we can somehow benchmark. Yeah, is it good? Bad? So there are possible future steps. And I think this is my last slide. So thank you for your attention. And you have questions also for colleagues. Yeah, there's a space.
So I'm checking the online guests. Please feel free to ask anything.
I have a question to all three of you. What's your favorite indicator?
I have to say I don't have one because I'm a kind of structured and detailed person. So I like, let's say, all of them.
Okay, but if you have to pick one, which one would that be?
Question. Guys, you can start.
Depending on what we are trying to, the area, but very nice. Intangible is the chemistry. We are talking about chemistry. And from my expertise in marketing, there are like second most important thing why business is done in marketing is the chemistry of the use of the marketing agency, and it's the same in innovation ecosystem. So the chemistry, how to measure it, that's the question, and the future we can work on. And the first is obviously the creativity is also very complex to measure. So for me, the chemistry of the teams, how persons are understanding each other. And this is a tough one, obviously, because if you select one quantitative measurable thing, it's very easy to measure sometimes. So these intangibles are interesting.
For me, I have one, just let's say, satisfaction of the owner of the company. With the program, with the approach, just general. There you can specify more about satisfaction is from me.
Use Net Promoter Score?
Yes, we are using Net Promoter Score.
I have a question about willingness of the companies to give feedback. Did you have to push them a little bit, or were they totally okay with giving answers to these questions?
With these full interviews, they were all clients of us, and most of them, let's say 98%, who approached, they were willing to give us the answers. My colleagues who went there for these interviews, they said the atmosphere was really nice. Yeah, there were also some companies that didn't want to speak with us. Yeah, they were especially the companies from the beginning of the program, and kind of makes sense. Why not? Yeah, some companies also were closed. So more or less, I think most of the companies are okay with giving us information.
No questions from online audience. So we can leave the space also for lunch break, or you can think of your questions later on. We will try to respond. Now I would like to pass floor to Reyes, and we will move to the space of good practices. So Reyes, she's going to present you with a compact, let's say compact evaluation strategy, and hopefully, yeah, that's it. So Reyes, the floor is yours. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Adela. Thank you very much, guys. I think I'm going to put it on full screen. You see it full screen, I think. And good morning, everybody. I would like to be there in Ostrava, but some personal issues has made me that I'm not able to travel. So I hope that you're enjoying the, especially the offline part of the conference. That is the most interesting one. Here today, I'm going to talk about designing a dynamic evaluation strategy for continuous improvement. After Martin talk, the correct term of what I'm going to explain to you is a pre-post change comparison, more or less. So I just take note about that. Thank you, Martin. And I go ahead. What we are going to talk about today, I'm going to make a brief presentation of my institution and my region, and of the program, one of the programs that were selected in the DOP, and that we have been working with the methodology that Dalibor and Roman has been explaining. And at the end, I will just share with you one of the best practices that we have included in the DOP, that is a dynamic evaluation strategy for all. Fundación para el Conocimiento Madri+d, it's the institution in which I work. We belong to the Regional Ministry of Education, Science, Universities, and spokesmen of the Community of Madrid. Our main aim as a foundation is to contribute to the progress and welfare of the citizens through promotion of science, technology, innovation, and quality of higher education. We are not an innovation agency. We are a tool of the regional ministry to implement some of their actions. I must say that Madrid is a core region in Spain. We are the capital of the country, and the added value that we have given, I think, to this EFFECT-SME project comes from that, as you can see in the slide, in the figures. We are a university region with a large research and teaching infrastructure, and also a good pool of potential innovators and researchers, thousands of them. We are a region, of course, of excellence in science, technology, and innovation, with thousands of jobs devoted to R&D, with more than 50 research centers and a network of public hospitals, health foundation, and health centers that also work very directly with this R&D and I ecosystem. Madrid is also defined as an innovative region because 1.7% of our GDP is obtained by R&D activities, and we expand the 26% of our total R&D in innovation. This is a scheme of my foundation, okay? The areas in which we are divided. And Madri+d supports the regional landscape of research, innovation, and higher education through 3 pillars, as you can see there. In green, we have the science in society pillar, let's say, with different support actions like the coordination of the European Researchers' Night in Madrid, or different activities like the Science Week or the Science and Innovation Fair, and of course, a lot of communication actions. We are also an agency for evaluation and quality support for our universities and our teaching community in blue. And last but not least, our 3rd pillar is the promotion of the transfer of knowledge. And we do it by supporting entrepreneurships and also by helping in the internationalization. In this regard, in the EU programs and the technology transfer area, which I belong, we are the coordinators among other projects of the Enterprise Europe Network, which is the biggest support network for SMEs who has international ambitions. And my area through the Enterprise Europe Network node in Madrid, together with the entrepreneurs area, have been the one participating in the EFFECT-SME project. As I mentioned before, we connect dots. Networking is our greatest asset as Madri+d Foundation, and we work in cooperation with all the actors of the regional system of education, science, technology, and innovation, and we help them to optimize their resources and to share their responsibility in our ecosystem. Having said that, now I'm going to focus and I'm going to briefly introduce you one of the programs that you will find in our design option paper, and that has been analyzed, as I have mentioned before, during the peer learning workshops of our project. The program is called Health Start Madri+d, and the general objective of this program is encouraging the creation of technological startups in the healthcare sector, mostly coming from Madrid hospitals, healthcare centers, or research centers. We launched this program in 2016, and what we support is ideas or business projects in a very, very early stage. The beneficiaries of this Health Start Madri+d support program are entrepreneurs and professionals in the healthcare sector with their own technological projects, or those that has been developed in the core of hospitals, universities, or research centers in our region. What do we offer? We offer 12,000 euros cash plus services, training, and team building, and we launch one call per year. Here I give you some figures of the program. Per call and per year, we select among 10 or 14 projects. As I mentioned, we try to give them a space for networking, building new connections, support services, and a very well-thought training program. We also, in one of the last stages of the program, create a final event in which they have to pitch their projects. We select winners, and we give them an extra support and an extra funding. And just for you to know, after 5 editions, we have helped the creation of 12 startups in the healthcare sector here in Madrid. So we are very proud of that. Just a sort of a view of the last call. We received only in Madrid, this is a regional program, 36 applications, of which 16 were selected and 15 projects reached the final committee. During the support period, we offered 19 webinars. We also matched a tutor or a mentor with each project. And since the beginning, we give them 2,000 euros in cash to start the prototyping of their ideas or their projects, plus all the support services. Going deeper into the evaluation, that is the target of the SME EFFECT project. Here I have just include the scheme that you will see in our DOP about the evaluation of Health Start. So during the first month, we launch the call and select the candidates. And once they are selected, as I have mentioned, they start this 10-month period of support activities. And we give them the 2,000 euros in cash for piloting. As you see there, in month 10, we evaluate the candidate progress in a final event, and the ones that pass the evaluation will receive an extra support of 5-month services, plus 10,000 euros to complete their projects. In the last line, you can see that we perform a long-term evaluation after 3 years, just to gather information of the long-term impact of the program, to see if the projects or the companies are still alive, and just to monitor a little bit this long-term impact. In between, what we do is something that is very important and is the core of this presentation and this best practice. There are 2 types of evaluations: the continuous quality evaluation of the training and the events, and the ex-ante versus ex-post quality evaluation. Continuous quality evaluation. It is devoted to evaluate each training course or each event that we organize and that we offer to the support projects. They are done during the 10th-month support in every event or training, and some aspects that we evaluate are the organization and the prior information about the event, the technical means and the online platform that we are using, the duration of the event, the quality of the speakers, etc. How we do it, as Roman has said, we are not very sophisticated. We are using an online tool called Typeform, which is very user-friendly to design the questionnaires. And after that, you can download an Excel file with all the answers, so you can analyze the data very easy, just having a user level of Excel. So, for instance, in our first training program, when we launched the Health Start scheme, we asked the candidates in their training priorities in the registration form. Thanks to these answers and doing it over the time, we can update the content yearly based on what our candidates want. Regarding the ex-ante versus ex-post evaluation, that this will be like the pre-post test change comparison that we perform. The methodology is the same that I have explained in the continuous quality evaluation, but the timing and the questions are not. In this type of ex-ante ex-post evaluation, we do the questionnaire on month 1 and we repeat the questionnaire on month 10 after the first support period. Okay, so we ask them in these questionnaires the intention to create a company, knowledge of all the aspects, for instance, covered by the training sessions, if they have previous knowledge about investors, public funding instruments, contents about the business plan or IPR, whatever. And what we can gather from these answers are, like you see in the figure, a comparison of the initial phase and the final phase. In this case, I think the picture corresponds to the satisfaction with the calendar and the training. So at initial, in the initial phase, we have 50-50 in the answers. And at the final stage in month 10, we have more yellow, a 75% yellow than blue. That strengthens us to think that we have been doing the things correctly and well, and we have to continue in this line for the next call. If we had more blue than yellow in this case, we had to think about that something is going wrong and we are missing things, and we need to go in detail in, for instance, the evaluation of each training, just to see if we are missing something. So what we conclude from this study, and because of that, we present this best practice that is very simple but very useful, the dynamic evaluation strategy, is that we have seen that during the EFFECT-SME peer learning workshops, and we have discovered that the overall evaluation process of Health Start is quite mature compared to others in others evaluation and others innovation agencies. And also we have seen that in particular the ex-ante versus ex-post evaluation can be a good practice, of course, for our consortium, but also for you that that belong to other innovation agencies, and that you can apply this methodology, which at the beginning maybe it's not easy, but when you start to implement it, it's quite simple. So this is my last slide, and I wanted just to highlight some topics in this dynamic evaluation strategy. It is a step-by-step evaluation. My colleagues have already told it. You have to take time to think what you really want to assess. Evaluation is not something to do it randomly. You have to think on the type of indicators you want to measure. The long list that we will provide in the DOP will help you, I think, a lot just to make this selection and adapt it to your programs. Very important, already said, to whom are you reporting? Internally, externally? In my case, I have to report to the regional government. So maybe the structure of the evaluation should be different to another one that it's not reporting to anyone and it's just for self learning. And why you want to perform, in this case, this agile evaluation, just to change quickly year by year or 2 times a year. Do you really want that? This is something that you want to, that I want you to think about it when designing this type of evaluations. Just focusing on the ex-ante versus ex-post quality evaluation, for us, they are very useful to see the real impact and almost in real time of the program that we are delivering to support our startups. And it also helps to improve the program itself by iterating on those issues that we see that are not behaving as it should. And we can just change it, as I have mentioned, in an agile way, just in the immediate next call. To finish, some tips that I want to give you for you. To compare, you need to maintain the structure. So don't blow your mind, imagine new questions, just think in one question, in one questionnaire, and repeat it. This is what we do. We have the questionnaire in month 1 and the same questionnaire in month 10 just to see the change. Otherwise, we couldn't compare. For us, and as also Roman has said, simple online tools are very helpful. In our case, Typeform is enough to design an easy questionnaire and to analyze the data just in Excel with some graphics and some data. And it's very easy for almost everyone managing this type of programs. And in the case of this type of dynamic evaluation strategy, is valid for all. I am talking about a program that supports ideas and startups, but it can be applied also to SMEs or to other support programs that you are designing in your region. So just take some tips, and I hope it would be helpful for you. This is all from my side. I would like to thank you and to thank my colleagues in Ostrava for organizing the final conference, and I will be open to question if we have a couple of minutes. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reyes. Yes, we have a couple of minutes, so please feel free to ask. Or maybe I can ask if you, as young organizations or whoever, see usefulness in this process, or would you be willing to use it, or do you have any other experience with ex ante, ex post evaluations in your programs?
Yeah, really interesting.
Some online questions? No.
It is very simple, but I have seen that not many people do something like that, although it's really simple. It's repeating a questionnaire. This is the idea. So, and after that, compare.
Yeah, so you will have chance to study more in detail. Also, the practical example of all the questions that that Madri+d is asking the participants, so you can use it for yourself, adapt it, and as Reyes was mentioning, it really helps a lot to shape the program. So that's it. And if you have any questions, maybe later on, just don't be afraid to ask. We will pass on to Reyes as well. And
thank you very much, Adela.
And now we will have a 10 minutes break, so you can refresh yourselves, and then we will have 2 more presentations on good practices. Hello, welcome again. I will wait just a few seconds for our offline guests to take a seat. And our dear guest from Steinbeis, Miriam, can start preparing. Miriam, we would like to welcome you here and also ask you to share your screen, or shall we share your presentation?
No, I'm happy to share my screen. 1 second, please.
And I think, Adela, we don't see your audience or your share. But now, yes, fine, great.
So can you confirm that you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Should I start, or should we start with the question that was asked in the chat for to the previous presenter?
Yes, we would like to start with the question from Mrs. Feštrova, who asked Roman and also Reyes, because you both mentioned that you are using these simple online tools, not very sophisticated. And she asked if you have noticed in the end that maybe you would need some more sophisticated tool later on, or will you continue to use what you're using?
From my side, if I can start, sometimes, yes, I'm thinking I would use some more sophisticated tool, but so far I don't have experience with them. So if there's some example she can share with us, it is good. Yeah, I'm always open to see something more.
Mrs. Feštrova, did you have any special tool in mind, or was it just a general question from your side?
Hello to everybody. It was just a general question. I have not just right now any particular tool in my mind. I was just curious if Roman and Reyes have eventually perceived or noticed that they would need more sophisticated tools or methods to find out what is behind the findings they reached. So it was just a question, a general question. So thanks.
In my case, if I may, I would say that no, for us, it's enough because we don't manage a very big number of data. As you see that we are talking about in HealthStart, 15 companies per year. So this is something that you can easily manage by Excel or doing an online questionnaire. It is true that for us to have it online, it's something useful, but by now, I think that for us is this type of reports that we have in Excel and how we treat the data. For us until now, it's enough.
Okay, maybe if someone else, maybe from JIC, have a quick tip for more sophisticated tools they are using. There is a space to share now or later on.
Yeah, sure. Together with the other partners from Innovate, including MSIC, using case tracker software for tracking the workflow of the consultation support of Expand and Platin in other regions, including the feedback mechanism and instant data analysis. So I think it's something that Mr. Zaitz also included in his work in this peer learning. So that's the most sophisticated thing we're using because we're processing a lot of data there, and it's a long-term process.
And is the tool available? I mean, for free or no? It's
we need to pay a license for that, yearly license, and it is available for the license fee for anybody interested.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. And now we would like to give space to Miriam, who will present another good practice from Steinbeis. So Miriam, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction. I'm very happy to be here and share with you our regional example of how we assess our regional support instrument for SMEs, which is called the Innocheck BW. So we at Steinbeis Europa Zentrum, we work in the region in Germany, in the south of Germany of Baden-Württemberg, and we have a close relationship with the Ministry for Economics, with whom we cooperate in this regional support instrument Innocheck BW. So BW in this case stands for Baden-Württemberg, so the region where we are situated. I'm sorry. So what is Innocheck BW? Basically, it is a platform that we have set up in cooperation with the ministry, and it is a support instrument with which we would like to support SMEs in their quest for funding opportunities, especially EU funding. And with this support instrument for SMEs, of course, there are a few assessments and evaluations that have come into play here. So the basic assessment that we did was, of course, the needs assessment. So what do SMEs in our regions need? And then also the evaluation of our service and the evaluation of marketing and how we actually reach target groups, which is continuous. So to give you a background, as said, the Innocheck BW is a platform, and here you can see an illustration of how we market this platform. So it is targeted at companies with an innovative idea, an innovation project, and for them to find funding opportunities, mainly EU funding, since we found that out in our initial needs assessment, is that companies in our region are not very aware of funding opportunities, especially EU funding. So the core point of the Innocheck BW platform is a questionnaire that companies have to fill in. It's about 25 questions about, well, the basic information about the company, in which sector is the company active, what is their innovative idea, what is their solution, what is the need that they target with this innovation. It takes about 15 minutes to fill out. We wanted to make that quite easy for the companies as a first contact point to us. This is nothing where they have to give concrete numbers, make a business plan. This is really the basic information that all companies have about themselves. So that it is really an easy way for them to come into contact with us. And based on the answers that they give in this questionnaire, we check the potential fit of their innovation idea, innovation project idea, with European innovation funding programs. So we check for potential funding schemes that could be interesting for the companies. So as you can see in this graphic, we mainly analyze whether the companies would be a good fit for the European Innovation Council, EIC, for the instruments Pathfinder, Transition, Accelerator, and the EIC prizes. However, since there are also funding opportunities for SMEs in the Horizon Europe program, in the Pillar 2, in the thematic clusters, we also assess this. And then also the fit for other EU funding opportunities, for example, for the Single Market Program, for Cascade funding, which is always a very also interesting funding opportunities for SMEs that is not very well known amongst SMEs in our region currently. And of course, since we're dealing with companies active in our region, we are also checking for regional and national funding schemes, since well, we all know that some funding opportunities are just more attractive or more fitting for the companies that are on a regional or national level. So we have an information package with an explanation video on the Innocheck website. We have flyers and brochures that we, well, intended to hand out at physical events, which of course in the past has been a little bit more difficult. I will come back to that in a second. We're using webinars, presentations, event presentations where we market and inform about the opportunity that that Innocheck BW offers to companies, and especially try to increase the awareness for the European Innovation Council, which, as I said, is not very well known at the moment to companies in our region. So what do the companies get that fill in this questionnaire, get in contact with us about through this Innocheck BW platform? So first of all, they receive an automatically generated PDF with some links for further information. As said, the knowledge about EU funding opportunities is not very strong in our region. Oh, I think this is a general issue, the awareness of funding of EU funding opportunities also for SMEs. So this is just a very basic information about these funding opportunities are out there. Here are the basic information about that. Furthermore, the companies receive an individual consultation with one of Steinbeis' experts. So this is a consultation where we talk to them, go through the answers that they gave in the questionnaire, and we see, is there a good fit for funding for EU funding for your company, for your innovation project. Also, if we, after the first consultation, or maybe there's a second consultation where we talk in more detail, if there is really the opportunity and the need to write an EU proposal in the EIC program, for example, in Horizont, we also support SMEs in conceptualizing their ideas and in actually writing the EU proposal. These services are funded by the Ministry of Economy, Labour and Tourism in Baden-Württemberg. So the services, the first consultation, some conceptualization steps, and the writing of the proposal are mostly free services for the SMEs. So this is a very attractive offer for companies in our region. Of course, at Steinbeis, we also offer further services for companies. For example, since we're also part of the Enterprise Europe network, we help with international partner search, project management once EU grants are actually granted to the companies, IPR management are just some examples that we also offer to companies as an additional service. So, how did the Innocheck BW platform perform during the COVID-19 pandemic? Basically, as in all European countries, all countries in the world, the pandemic affected our regional economy, of course, also heavily. We have a strong industry, especially in manufacturing, manufacturing car parts, cars, and so on. So the GDP decreased by 5.5%, and we could see a high uncertainty amongst SMEs. However, this was also, we also saw that many SMEs were actually actively looking for new strategic opportunities, and there was a high demand of, well, on consultancy, on tips and tricks, on funding opportunities in general. The Innocheck BW platform was started in the beginning of 2020, so right before the pandemic hit. And luckily, this is a mainly online-based service. So most services that we planned to offer, we could actually offer and carry out. So most services could be offered in a virtual format. The platform is an online tool. Of course, the questionnaire on that platform is an online tool. Consultations can be carried out online. Also, further services and support can be carried out online. The main effects that we had on this particular service and instrument was in the marketing. So originally, as I said, we planned that we would go to many trade fairs, events, come into contact with companies, hand them our flyers. And this was just not possible during the pandemic. We had in the south of Germany very severe lockdowns. There were not many physical events and no face-to-face meetings. So this was something that can be identified as a big struggle, actually, in our case. So in the first evaluation, we ask ourselves the question, so how can we reach innovators with high potential ideas? Since most EU programs, most EU funding opportunities are really funding for highly innovative, disruptive ideas. So we identified the most important target groups for us. That's mainly deep tech and companies with a high potential, so really specialized in deep tech and high tech in this sector. Then also female innovators and women-led enterprises, since the initial assessment showed us that support for female entrepreneurs is not that strong in the past. However, there are very interesting opportunities for female innovators in EU funding. And also young and unexperienced enterprises. What I mean with that is mainly startups and companies that so far have not come into contact with EU funding. So as said, we quickly realized that the knowledge on EU funding, that EU funding is not only for research institutions, but it's also available to SMEs. This is something that is not really known. And this is the point where we wanted to come in and just also spread the awareness about EU funding opportunities. So what I can just give you a quick show you what we did in the last year in terms of events. For example, we carried out 8 webinars and 14 presentations at third-party events and direct consultations with multiplicators. So we really had a direct knowledge transfer about EU funding programs, and this also gave us the opportunity to directly advertise the Innocheck BW. As you can see, we reached a lot of people, but mainly through digital virtual formats. So this was mainly online events that I'm talking about. Because 2021, although we had a relatively good summer, still there were not many big events that gave us the opportunity to talk to people in person. We also increased our social media activity with paid social media campaigns and many social media posts on, EU funding opportunities, also cascade funding, smaller EU project opportunities, everything that could be interesting to SMEs in our region. We promoted on social media, on the Steinbeis social media channels. We also produced an information brochure and updated this and a postcard especially targeted at startups. And we tried to promote the Innocheck via Google, via a Google ad. And all in all, when we evaluated this, I can say that the Google ad was the least performant marketing aspect or marketing tool for us. For example, social media showed a much higher interaction and outcome. So to give you an overview, because of course we assessed, this is part of our continuous assessment and evaluation, how did companies hear about our service? How did they hear about the platform Innocheck BW? And this is something that we also ask in the questionnaire. I mean, some people don't fill this question in, which is for us, of course, difficult. But we can see that we have quite a diverse way from companies how they found out about Innocheck BW. And I think we can see that our newsletter and our website of Steinbeis, also social media, are very strong points where companies actually learn about our services. So we can say that our mailing and marketing through our website and our social media channels were quite successful. What I personally found interesting, because you have to keep in mind this is the evaluation after 2020 and 2021, that the flyer is not very often mentioned. But of course, if we didn't have many opportunities during the pandemic to actually hand out the flyer. And if we did, this was through personal interaction. So people would rather remember the personal interaction, of course. So this is also why for us, we make it slight distinction also between quantitative and qualitative numbers, because if we look at the numbers, we would think, okay, our newsletter is the most important access point. However, after 2 years in the pandemic, I would personally assume that if there had been more trade fairs and events, and we would have come into personal interaction with companies more, that the percentage for personal interaction would definitely be a higher access point for Innocheck BW. This is, of course, something that I don't have any numbers about, because we started the service right before the pandemic. But this will be in the next months and years very interesting to us, whether through personal events and physical events we can actually increase the number of companies that find Innocheck BW services because we've talked to them and come into personal contact with them. So generally what we can see is that we have a lot of visitors on our platform. And in the last 1.5 years, we had over 130 questionnaires submitted by companies. In our evaluation, we could see that about 10% of the companies that fill in this questionnaire are directly eligible for EU funding. To them, we can say, hey, this is the funding instrument, you can apply now, and this is perfect for you. Another 10% have the potential where we can say something like, okay, the instrument, there's no deadlines currently because, of course, Horizont Europe was a program that was like now relaunched, and there were not some deadlines were postponed and so on. But this is only like 20%. This doesn't necessarily mean that the other companies don't have innovative ideas. This just to us means that other funding opportunities are more interesting to them. For example, regional funding opportunities, national funding opportunities. Also, many startups, we actually redirect to startup support centers because they're still in the founding process, and in this stage, EU funding is usually not the first thing that comes to mind. So this evaluation basically tells us that we still need to better guide visitors to suitable funding programs, and also the need to increase our targeted advertising on the platform. So what the first 2 years of the service and the continuous evaluation of this actually showed us was that we introduced in the last year some new dynamic functions on the platform, for example, through a blog and an FAQ. But there's still some search engine optimization to be done. We would also like to include some success stories and testimonials, since as I said, the awareness of EU funding opportunities is very low, and also many companies cannot imagine how EU funding could be beneficial because it is very unclear to them and very new to them. So including success stories, this is the conclusion that we draw from the assessment, would be that success stories and really showing testimonials how other companies could benefit from EU funding opportunities. This can really make these opportunities more concrete, so more attractive to companies. And as said, the currently quite low number of companies that come to us and are really directly eligible for funding means that we would like to further increase our active recruitment of female innovators and also high potential companies. And as a last step, this is something that we are currently working on. We would like to add kind of a workflow for companies, so that when they come to the Innocheck platform and they fill in the questionnaire, they don't only get a PDF with some basic information, but they also get access to some further hidden sites on our website, where they can find some tips and tricks and templates and all the materials that we have collected in the past that can be beneficial to companies when they would like to apply for EU funding. This is something that we are currently working on. So yeah, all in all, I think, yeah, I hope that could give you a quick or short overview of the service and how we initially assess the needs of the companies, and then the continuous assessment, because if you have a service, you always have to try to make it better. But then also the thing that we found, especially during the pandemic, was that only looking at numbers is only helpful to a certain extent. So there's always reasoning behind specific high or low numbers, and you have to find the actual explanations why something is interesting to certain companies. So for us, for example, on a regional level, there are also very attractive funding instruments for SMEs. So if only 10% of the companies that come to us are then applying for EU funding, that doesn't mean that EU funding does not target SMEs. This does not mean that the companies are not innovative. That also means that some other opportunities on a regional level could be more attractive or more fitting, for example. So I think this is the conclusion that we could draw from our continuous assessment, is that we always have to try to improve and offer more targeted service, but also that it's very important and difficult to distinguish between quantitative and qualitative aspects in evaluating the services and programs that you offer. So yeah, I hope that could give you a quick overview of what we do in Baden-Württemberg. I'm happy to answer any questions, and of course, if afterwards you are interested in this particular service that we offer, I'm always happy to receive emails. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Miriam. Maybe we forgot to mention before Miriam started her presentation that there are like two types of evaluations, and this one was the example of assessment of the project itself, not the program. So this is also something we are going to dedicate some time in our design option paper. So just for you know, this is an automated tool that can help you to assess the company before you expose them to your services. So this is like part of the whole process. So if you have any questions, please ask now. No questions. So we are running out of time. So you have contact for Miriam if you're interested. And I would like to ask now Pavel to join us here. And we will have kind of symmetric program, because we went from the more abstract and philosophical points of view through practical tools, and now we will close it up with again important questions to be asked. So the floor is yours, Pavel.
Thank you, Adela. Hello there online. I was really asked to share some perspective from Board of the Directors of MSIC, how we deal with monitoring and evaluation system, etc. Before there are many perspectives, I named my presentation complexity in evaluation methodologies, and let me go briefly through that. But for the start, let me answer to Philip's question about my favorite indicator. As a member of board, CEO of MSIC, it's a number of beer and coffees drank with the regional innovation strategy stakeholders. Are you satisfied?
Good.
Okay, so let me go through. We are all here people somehow familiar with monitoring and evaluation methodologies. So this is the general, well-known general framework. And let me start with 3 questions that are very often on my mind. First of all, do we really understand the nature of intended change? Because probably all of us somehow departure from the theory of change. Last couple of months, guys from World Bank recommended us, okay, how do you work with the theory of change framework? But what is really the intended change? Do we really understand it well? Who doesn't have the experience at the end of or in the middle of the project or program? Oh, do you remember the start of this scheme or instrument? What do we really intended? Where are the papers? Where are written objectives? And do you remember what were the KPIs? Who doesn't have this experience? To be honest, I was in charge of dozens of evaluation projects, not only in Czech Republic, but also across Europe. And there was always this situation, always. So, second point, do we have relevant data and for relevant KPIs? The 2-step process. From perspective of the board, I have another question. Do we have enough time and money? Do we have the capacity for gathering the right data for the right KPIs? Even if we know what are the right KPIs, are we able to collect the right data on time? Do we have the mutual trust, as Professor Blažek mentioned, to collect the data in, let's say, satisfied percentage of respondents? Third point, and probably the most important, is who wants what in the whole evaluation cycle process. Each of us really believes or knows that learning is the key result of the whole evaluation process. But I remember many situations where I discussed with politicians, and they said, okay, thank you for this data. We will cancel, we will stop all this, and we will fire the people who are in charge of that. So we really need to put together all these perspectives. Let me show you briefly what are the key dimensions of measuring in MSIC. We are a systemic agency. Our mission is to enhance regional innovation ecosystem. So our daily bread is about startups, scale-ups, mature companies, talents, internationalization, etc., research and technology collaboration, it's for sure. But we have three basic major areas where we need to exactly measure things and changes. First of all, innovation. Probably you are familiar with the many dimensions of innovations. And most importantly, we have two basic spheres of innovation: disruptive changes and continual incremental changes. And these two worlds are quite different. When we need to measure, we need to interpret things, and we need to design services and instruments. Second level of measuring is about growth. That's for sure that these all intangible things and all the atmosphere, social capital, mutual trust, etc. That's for sure that it's very important. But at the end of the day, as a member of the board, I have to show the data. President of our region, he is really special character, and he always said, well, I don't need to hear any words. I'm a technician. I'm an IT specialist, professor from this Technical University of Ostrava. I need data. I understand the data. So, how do we measure growth? Usually we start with turnover. It's somehow like size of the market. But how the turnover is connected to value added, created, exported, captured. Czech Republic is a very small country in the global context. So very important is how to measure export, exported value added, because this is the key mechanism how the prosperity of our people in this region can be enhanced. Are there profit important for us? It depends. When we are working with startups and the genius startups from this region compared to, let's say, global brands, transnational companies, we know, we are really familiar with transfer pricing. And when these global brands are utilizing transfer pricing, what quality of data we have from their financial sheets? Third point, jobs. Politicians really like this data about jobs. But to be honest, are we able to measure the net jobs created? I can stress the word net. And is it important, or is the important the change in the structures? When we are measuring some skills structures on labor market, this is really important. And is that, when I come back to my first question, how is it related to, do we really understand the nature of the change? When it comes to measuring and especially collecting the data and designing the evaluation projects, I have usually three interconnected questions. First of all, which type of strategic change we prefer in MSIC? We prefer strategic change as not the word innovation, but you know, radical, incremental, so strategic change. Therefore, we work with the owners of companies. And which types of this strategic change have the strongest impact on the growth and on the jobs? If you have the question, which, let's say,
instruments should we focus on? If we are not able to answer the first question, the second question is not so important and sensible. And finally, if we can answer the first two questions, which companies should we prioritize on? When we have the strategic discussions with colleagues in MSIC, these are my three questions behind all other questions, because I really need to understand this sequence of answers. Because our sources are scarce. And I'm responsible with my colleagues in the board to the politicians who decided about financial resources and many other things about MSIC. When it comes to measuring innovation, I mentioned the innovation radar. You can continue with the slicing the pie cakes. And from my perspective, it's important to understand that the forms of innovation are endless. And from some perspective, it doesn't make sense to deal with this. What is important is the ambition of the owner, is the plan, action plan of the owner, and how you as an organization can add value on his process plan. Therefore, I really stress and I try to create an environment within MSIC to focus on impact and measuring impacts, quantitative and qualitative, at the level of individual company. When it comes to measuring aggregated impacts, we really need to depart from the thing that all the quantitative statistical data are based on normal Gauss distribution of entities. But in innovation, we are in quite a different world. We are in the world of very asymmetric distribution of entities. Let's start with one example. When I discuss the topic of impacts in acceleration incubation services, I usually need to answer the question, is it better to have one unicorn or a dozen of, let's say, startup projects which turn, let's say, 50 million Czech crowns on turnover? What is better? My answer is depends on time. But when you are responsible to the politicians, you need to show the data in one moment. And they really don't understand this complexity of the evaluation and monitoring. When it comes to KPI indicators, from my perspective, one of the most important things in learning is to understand what is measurable in what time for what cost. This is, from my perspective, the most important practical thing behind the process of learning when it comes to monitoring and evaluation. So I'm really focused when designing new programs, new instruments, and evaluation projects with my colleagues on the implicit logic of the KPIs. I mentioned the case with turnover added value
when it comes to transfer pricing, for example. Let me show another case. For example, many innovation centers have some regional coaching scheme. And usually among the clients of this scheme, you have startups, you have very early companies on one hand, and you have major companies on the other. And are you really able to compare them in terms of jobs, let's say? Everyone who is working with startups knows that you don't have employees. And how do you want to measure the impact on labor market? So at MSIC, we usually work with two basic groups of clients. We call it ROSISD in Czech, new companies measuring by existence of 42 months. It's based on the methodology of Global Entrepreneurial Monitor or Entrepreneurship Monitor, and with mature companies. But still, doesn't make sense to compare the group of companies, let's say younger than 7 years, with the more mature ones. At the end, I have 4 broad areas, and for myself, I call that monitoring and evaluation balance scorecard, somehow inspired by the well-known balance scorecard from measuring companies or evaluating companies, let's say. So relevant KPIs is the first one, as I mentioned, that this is the key area of learning, the practical thing. If you have the right, if you understand them right, and are you able to utilize them with right costs and right intentions behind it. It's about quality of data as the second one. And after that, it depends on the context. What is the purpose, as Roman mentioned in the first step? If it's about, let's say, interim, midterm evaluations, it's mostly about learning as a team, learning with our external partners as, let's say, accredited coaches. And when it comes to utilize the results with stakeholders all across the innovation ecosystem, it's about motivations of politicians, basically, because they are the most powerful decision makers on the scene. And from my perspective, from the international experience, is that the major difference, and maybe colleagues from Germany and Spain will have, let's say, different approach or opinion on that. But from my perspective, here in Eastern Europe, all the evaluations are very formal projects. Usually, I faced that no one or almost no one from the powerful political decision makers were really engaged in. They usually just took the book, the final report. They thank us and let's say started to continue doing business as usual without any learning. And several times I discussed with politicians who were really persuaded that any evidence-based policy is just myth, because the whole world is only about, let's say, conflicting interests. That's the end of just summarizing my experience from dozens of evaluation projects. And thank you for collaboration with partners, not only from Germany and Spain. And if there are any questions, I'm ready to answer them. So probably no questions. So we are probably about having lunch. Am I right?
Yes.
So the word is back to Adela. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there will be questions during the lunch on you, Pavel. So maybe there should be some more space given to our online guests if they wish to ask something or comment. We had some participants leaving, unfortunately, because they have other meetings and so on. But we can get back to the topic later on. So thank you very much to all our online guests. I think that today was full of inspiration, not only for us, but hopefully for you as well. And in our case at MSIC, we can see how much progress we can make in such a short period of time. So maybe this is the main message for you who are on the starting line with the evaluation processes to be put in place. And you will get the design option paper by the end of the March in your inboxes, and we will be happy if you use them, share them, and let us know what you think of it. So this is the closing word of our hybrid part of the conference. The conference is going on offline here in Ostrava, and thanks again to Reyes and Stefano to be part of the project. Do you wish to say anything?
Thank you very much for organizing everything and for taking the chance of doing hybrid just to be able to meet you. It's a pleasure to work with you. We have to finish the DOP and I think it has been a very fruitful morning, very interesting. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, same for me. Thanks a lot for organizing this. It was even from offline. I mean, it was very nice to attend. And yeah, the last mile is the preparation, delivering of DOP, and then you can share it with your audience and with the public as such. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
So bye-bye to all online guests.
Enjoy your lunch.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Enjoy. Bye. Bye.